Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting session of exploring the advent of divine justice. We are on part 22, part 2, covering paragraphs 103 through 107. And without any further ado, we'll have our opening prayer. And tonight, I will be reciting the prayer revealed for the Baha'is of the Southern States. O my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest. Abdul Baha. Welcome back, my friends. So wonderful to see you. Allah Akbar. Let's get this show on the road. We're covering paragraphs 103 through 107. And in this one, which I recommend for everyone because it has the paragraph numbers and it makes life a lot easier. So we're starting on paragraph 103. It starts on page 108. And in our handy one over here, which is a little older version, this starts on page 60. Page 60, okay? Just for everyone to, if they're keeping up, okay? So now, as last time, our dear Miss Deborah finished up to paragraph 104. So we're going to carry on starting at paragraph 105 tonight, just so we can get through as many of the wonderful slides as we can today. And then our next session hopefully will be part 23, and that is getting into Baha'u'llah's prophecies. So that's going to be another amazing and exciting session coming up. Okay, so we're starting tonight, paragraph 105, and it starts, let anyone inclined, okay? And I see my dear friend, Pat. Pat, how are you, Pat? You're our first reader tonight. Don't forget to unmute yourself and go for
it. Let anyone inclined to doubt the course which this enviable community is destined to follow turn to and meditate upon these words of Abdul Baha, enshrined for all time in the tablets of the divine plan and addressed to the entire community of the believers of the United States and Canada. The full measure of your success, he informs them, is as yet unrevealed, its significance still unapprehended. Ere long, ye will, with your own eyes, witness how brilliantly every one of you, even as a shining star, will radiate in the firmament of your country the light of divine guidance and will bestow upon its people the glory of an everlasting life. The range of your future achievements still remains undisclosed. I fervently hope that in the near future, the whole earth may be stirred and shaken by the results of your achievements. The hope, therefore, which Abdul Baha cherishes for you is that the same success which has attended your efforts in America may crown your endeavors in other parts of the world that through you, the fame of the cause of God may be diffused throughout the East and the West, and the advent of the kingdom of the Lord of hosts be proclaimed in all the 5 continents of the globe. The moment, he most significantly adds, this divine message is carried forward by the American believers from the shores of America and is propagated throughout the continents of Europe, of Asia, of Africa, and of Australasia, and as far as the islands of the Pacific, this community will find itself securely established upon the throne of an everlasting dominion. Then will all the peoples of the world witness that this community is spiritually illumined and divinely guided. Then will the whole earth resound with the praises of its majesty and greatness.
Beautifully read, Pat. Thank you so much. All right, and moving on. Paragraph 106. We go to my other side. Let's go to Dennis. Dennis, you're our next reader. Go for it, Dennis. Good to see you.
Good evening, Lawpa. Okay. No reader of these words, so vibrant with promises that not even the triumphant consummation of the 7-year plan can fulfill, can expect a community that has been raised so high and endowed so richly to remain content with any laurels it may win in the immediate future. To rest upon such laurels would indeed be tantamount to a betrayal of the trust betrayed in that community by Abdu'l-Baha. To cut short the chain of victories that must lead it on to that supreme triumph, the whole earth may be stirred and shaken by the results of his achievements would shatter his hopes. To vacillate and fail to propagate through the continents of Europe, of Asia, of Africa, and of Australasia, and as far as the islands of the Pacific, a message so magnificently proclaimed by it in the American continent would deprive it of the privilege of being securely established on the throne of an everlasting dominion. To forfeit the honor of proclaiming the advent of the kingdom of the Lord of hosts in all the 5 continents of the globe would silence those praises of its majesty and greatness that otherwise would echo throughout the whole earth.
Thank you, dear Dennis. Now read this one. Such vacillation, failure, or neglect, the American believers, the ambassadors of the faith of Baha'u'llah, will, I am firmly convinced, never permit. Such a trust will never be betrayed. Such hopes can never be shattered. Such a privilege will never be forfeited, nor will such praises remain unuttered. Nay, rather, the present generation of this blessed, this repeatedly blessed community will go from strength to strength and will hand on as the first century draws to a close to the generations that must succeed it. In the second, the torch of divine guidance, undimmed by the tempestuous winds that must blow upon it, that they in turn, faithful to the wish and mandate of Abdu'l-Baha, may carry that torch with that self-same vigor, fidelity, and enthusiasm to the darkest and remotest corners of the earth. There we are, dear friends, paragraphs 103 through 107. We read 103 through 104 last time, and this time we read 105 through 107 tonight. So in these paragraphs, I'll read the summary, and we'll read just a few extracts also from paragraphs 105 through 107. So The beloved guardian here is now warning the North American Baha'i community. This is in the opening paragraph, of events of unimaginable magnitude. And remember when this was written again? December 25th, 1938. So right before the start of World War II. So events of unimaginable magnitude in the remaining years of the first century of the Baha'i era that may threaten and undermine the events of the community in winning the goals of the 7-year plan. So first century of the Baha'i era, remember, the faith started 1844. So first century goes to 1944. So the beloved guardian here is saying that there's going to be events of unimaginable magnitude in this first century, all the way up to even 1944. Such events are the result of the decay of the old order, driven by the twin processes. This is the beloved guardian speaking here, the twin processes of integration and disintegration towards the establishment of the world order of Baha'u'llah. The beloved guardian carries on. He says he also is emphasizing the first 7-year plan as the initial stage, just the initial, because the friends at that point in time, when he launched the first 7-year plan, they didn't know that there was going to be succeeding plans after that. So the beloved guardian here in the Advent of Divine Justice, he says this is just the initial stage in the implementation of the tablets of the divine plan, and just a stepping stone to the accelerated expansion of the faith, all the way going into the 2nd century of the Baha'i era. So now recapping over a few of the paragraphs that we read. So this is in paragraph 105. It says, it starts off, let anyone inclined to doubt the course which this enviable community is destined to follow. So in this paragraph, now it's addressing the North American Baha'i community and really launching its praises. And remember that in the previous section, in part 21, we went over individual after individual, all these wonderful lady heroines that have gone pioneering, winning the goals of that the beloved guardian had laid out, and winning the goals of the tablets of the divine plan. And so here, the beloved guardian is really again stressing how amazing this North American Baha'i community is. So he's saying, the full measure of your success, he informs them, is yet unrevealed. Its significance still unapprehended. He says, ere long ye will with your own eyes witness how brilliantly every one of you, even as a shining star, will radiate in the firmament of your country, the light of divine guidance. And that's where that compilation's title comes from, Lights of Divine Guidance, right there. So that's just for your information. And will bestow upon its people the glory of an everlasting life. The range of your future achievements still remains undisclosed. And then later on, as we scroll down, right here is the beloved guardian mentions all these places, and these are all mentioned in Tablets of the Divine Plan, go forth to all these regions. And it says, the hope, therefore, which Abdul-Baha cherishes for you is the same success which has attended your efforts in America, may crown your endeavors in other parts of the world, that through you, the fame of the cause of God may be diffused throughout the East and the West, and the advent of the kingdom of the Lord of hosts. This is another title of Baha'u'llah. Remember, Advent of Divine Justice is the revelation of Baha'u'llah. So here, the advent, the coming in, it's where God is coming in, the advent of what? The advent of the kingdom of the Lord of hosts be proclaimed in all the 5 continents of the globe. This moment, the moment he most significantly adds this divine message is carried forward by the American believers from the shores of America and is propagated throughout the continents of Europe, of Asia, of Africa, and Australasia, as far as the islands of the Pacific. So this is what the beloved guardian is saying, is that the Americans go forth and propagate, in the sense, promulgate the message of Baha'u'llah everywhere. So this is paragraph 105. And then in paragraph 106, the beloved guardian is now saying, the whole earth may be stirred and shaken by the results of your achievements. The whole earth is shaken and stirred by the achievements of the North American Baha'i community. This is an incredible, incredible honor and privilege that that he's lauding this community, paragraph after paragraph here. But then interestingly, he says, this is right in the middle, to vacillate. Does anyone know what vacillation means, to vacillate? The beloved guardian mentions this word several places. I think it's at least 6 letters off the top of my head is the term vacillate. Anyone? I don't think we have our dear Don.
Vacillate is moving east to west or something, moving around.
That's very good. That's very good. To moving around is to shake without decision. Vibrate is, you're not sure about something. Vacillate, to vacillate on something. This, dear friends, is the complete opposite of certitude. If you have certitude, you're sure about something, and you're not moving, this way or that way. So the beloved guardian, he says, to vacillate and fail to propagate through the continents of Europe, of Asia, of Africa, and of Australasia, and as far as the islands of the Pacific, a message so magnificently proclaimed by it in the American continent would deprive it of the privilege of being securely established upon the throne of an everlasting dominion. So, dear friends, once we finish up our dear letter, Advent of Divine Justice, in the concluding paragraph of America and the Most Great Peace, which is our next great letter that we'll go through, the concluding paragraph of America and the Most Great Peace, the beloved guardian lays at home, as he says. He lays it out. He says the exact same thing right here. If the American Baha'i community vacillates or fails to propagate this message, fails in their spiritual destiny, what happens? It says they would be deprived of this privilege. And the privilege is this spiritual ascendancy, being the chief citadel that the beloved master, the beloved guardian is saying, we are the chief citadel. Dear Karen, you have a hand, please.
Yes, I was looking up the meaning of vacillate, and it's really pretty clear. Mm-hmm. It says to show uncertainty about the right course of action.
That's right.
Yeah. So to me, that it gives extra added depth, the understanding of that, to what Shuggie Effendi is quoting here.
Yeah, it's when you have that level of doubt, and when you are not sure about something, you have doubt. And you're absolutely right there, Karen. It's when you're not sure about something, so you're like, oh, I'm not sure. So you have the doubt enters here. And this is something, dear friends, that the attacks on the faith, especially covenant breakers, try to do. When they launch attacks on the faith, they try to put seeds of doubt in individuals so that they vacillate. They lose their certainty on the faith. And they do it very sinisterly, very per se, the correct word is sinisterly, but it has levels of cleverness in the sense of it being an attack. And how they do it is they weave truths and lies together. For example, so they may have praises and wonderful sayings of His Holiness Abdul Baha, and everything seems true, and everything of the beloved guardian is true. Then they weave a lie in there, just like, and it's in there. And what happens is you start doubting, and then you start cannot telling truth from lie. And you're not sure about what the authenticity of what it is. And then it starts becoming literally a fabric of an attack on whether it's the institutions or the central figures or the entire faith itself. And that's how they do it. They weave falsehood with the truth. And this is the level of disinformation, an attack of disinformation to discredit whether there was an attack on His Holiness the Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, the beloved guardian, the institutions of the cause. This is how they have been doing it, weaving these machinations with lies with truths. And they do it very, as I said, sinisterly, because they pour love out. So you think, oh, they love Abdul Baha, oh, everything's nice, hunky-dory and everything. And then suddenly there's a snipe attack. And it's that's why we're absolutely categorically told to never even read these things, because the one thing that you can never go back on, and this is when we get to when we study dispensation of Baha'u'llah. I know we're often a tangent, as they say, but when we study dispensation of Baha'u'llah together, the beloved guardian categorically urges all of us to stay firm in the covenant. And this is very important. And being firm in the covenant is to ensure the spiritual health of every one of us, to maintain that level of protection of our heart. But if, even for a moment, as they say, you remember what dear Karen says, that level of unsurety, you're unsure about something, and that, which is vacillation, you have a question. Oh, I think I saw something on the internet about this or that, and you go and read something with this or that, and it happens to be a covenant breaker. What happens is they have planted that seed of doubt, and you cannot unread things. You cannot unread it. It gets planted in your mind, it gets planted in your heart, and what happens? If ever another moment of doubt emerges, you're watering that doubt in your heart. And that seed starts slowly taking hold. It's a poison, and it's just like a spiritual, this is like a spiritual cancer. That's what covenant breakers spread. It's a disease. Anyway, I talked too much about that, but this is, the beloved guardian mentions it again in paragraph 107. This aspect of vacillation, failure, neglect. And he's warning the friends, categorically warning, do not have vacillation. Do not fail in your duties. Do not neglect this, because your destiny, dear friends, is what? To be ambassadors of the faith of Baha'u'llah. Do you consider yourself an ambassador of the faith of Baha'u'llah? Each one of us should be having, when we say, I am a Baha'i, we should literally be picturing ourselves holding the banner of Baha'u'llah and walking everywhere and proclaiming his message. How cool would that be? That picturing yourself, like how Mullah Hussein was holding the banner of the black flag, and moving, we can't do that nowadays, but this is how we should be in our standards, in our walk, in our composure, in our attitudes. We should be an ambassador of the faith of Baha'u'llah. And so this is, and then the beloved guardian carries on. And he's now addressing here at the end of this paragraph, he says that there's going to be tempestuous winds that must blow upon this small faith, tempestuous winds. And this is mentioned again in a future letter called The Promised Day is Come. And it's this reference, a tempest unrestrained, is the opening lines of Promised Day is Come. So he says that this tempestuous winds that must blow upon it, that they in turn faithful to wish this mandate of Abdu'l-Baha. And what is this mandate of Abdu'l-Baha? Tablets of the Divine Plan, the great mandate. So this small community, North American Baha'i community, must be faithful to this mandate of Abdu'l-Baha. With what? This self-same vigor, fidelity. What does fidelity mean? Faithfulness. Faithfulness. And enthusiasm to the darkest and remotest corners of the earth. So here again, first, if you recall scrolling back, first, the beloved guardian, at the very opening of Advent of Divine Justice, he lays it out. He lays out the problems of America generally. He says there are certain problems in America: materialism, racism, corruption. Then he presents the solutions. He lays out his weapons, one after another, namely rectitude of conduct, chaste and holy life. Then he lays out freedom from racial prejudices. He lays out those solutions. Then right after that, he lays out how to teach the cause, okay? The how to. In relation, also, he lays it out also in the aspect of pioneering. So he lays out all the aspects of how to go forth pioneering. Then he later on gives the examples of great pioneers. So he says, there's this individual that went to Bulgaria. There's this also individual that went to Australasia. So you should be like them. Mirror these individuals and praises them. And now he's saying, carry on. He's now summoning people and saying, carry on. And he says, do not vacillate. Do not fail, and do not neglect it, or else you will lose your spiritual ascendancy. This is what the beloved guardian says. And then he, at the end of this paragraph, he says, you should proceed with vigor, fidelity, enthusiasm. Now, where did we see these qualities before? Whoever can name these qualities gets extra bonus points. Where did we see these qualities named before? Vigor and enthusiasm.
In reference to the youth?
Miss Darla, bing, bing, bing. I love it. Okay, Miss Darla, you just got big bonus points. I love it. Now, Miss Darla, if you can, off the top of your head, name me the paragraph, you get double bonus points.
Well, I'll have to be satisfied with single points because I don't remember which paragraph.
I'm joking. So in this one, it's on page 58. Okay, it's right before the paragraph where it talks about to Panama. Okay, so it says to the Baha'i youth of America. Okay, to the Baha'i youth of America. And then it says, I will read it right here. Though lacking in experience and faced with insufficient resources, they have adventurous spirit, which they possess, vigor, alertness, optimism. So here, very similar qualities and attributes that are necessary: vigor, optimism, vigor, fidelity, enthusiasm. So it's this he's calling upon this, and you could think about this is a very young country, relatively speaking, compared to many other countries. So in the global stage, it is kind of like a youth. And also the energy that this North American community has exercised is very youth-like. The amount of pioneers that they have sent is very similar to this. But the beloved guardian is warning them. Do not be neglectful. Do not vacillate and do not fail. Okay, so that was just a very brief recap. Now, let's get into some of the key points, dear friends. We're marching right along. So, the outbreak of the Second World War foreshadowed a time of inconceivable horror. This war embroiled more than 30 countries. And there are estimates that around 35 to 60 million people were killed. And this is such a terrible war. Look at the differences between 35 and 60 million. You know, how many difference of millions of people were killed. And it just shows the devastation of this, how bad this war was, that you just cannot have an accurate figure on the loss of lives. Millions of people were victims of famine, disease, as well as epidemics. And as we all know, around 5.7 million Jews, and half of them from Poland, were murdered in this Nazi concentration camps. The two processes of integration and disintegration are two aspects of a greater plan of God, whose ultimate objectives are the unity of the human race and the peace of all mankind. So, my dear friend, Miss Yuda, you're reading next. If you could unmute yourself and go for it.
Major key points from paragraph 103, 107. The integration process is the result of the steady consolidation and growth of the faith. The disintegration process is the decline and annihilation of outworn religious and secular institutions of the old order.
Beautifully read. Thank you, Ms. Yuda. Okay. The first 7-year plan was a preliminary stage in the great scheme envisioned for the North American Baha'i community in undertaking the responsibilities they were charged with by Abdul Baha in the tablets of the divine plan. So this is what we talked about in the first 7-year plan, just the preliminary stage. The beloved guardian Shoaib Effendi stresses that the North American Baha'i community should not be content with what they have achieved. The term he mentioned was, do not rest on your laurels. He says, do not rest on your laurels, thinking you have achieved it or per se won the goals. Because remember, they did win the goals in the sense of establishing an assembly in each of the states. They had achieved an assembly in each of the states and provinces of the United States and Canada. So they had won the goal. But the beloved guardian here is stressing that do not rest on your laurels, should not be content with what you have achieved in the first part of the 7-year plan, but they should reach for greater victories in the future plans. So in paragraph 103, dear friends, let us now have another reader. I always love to hear your voices. So look who it is. Miss Mary, you're up next. Go for it.
Events of unimaginable magnitude. In paragraph 103, the beloved guardian highlights that what he described in the previous paragraphs were the qualities and qualifications expected from the North American Baha'is and the requirements, the possibilities, and the objectives of the first 7-year plan set to conclude the first century of the Baha'i era in 1944 The 7-year duration of the plan, Shoghi Effendi points out, may be pregnant with events of unimaginable magnitude.
Excellently read, Miss Mary. Thank you.
Welcome.
So, as we all know, this was an incredibly turbulent period of time. And the beloved guardian also was working so hard during this time. I mean, he was working on his greatest book, God Passes By, and he completed it in 1944. And that was one of his goals, was to have that completed. And you could read the account in Priceless Pearl of how hard he worked on to get the priceless, to get God Passes By out in that time, especially during this period of time, as the beloved guardian mentioned, events of unimaginable magnitude. So you could see, these are just, when I was thinking of scenes of the war that was going on, you could see the devastation, whole cities just destroyed by bombings, whole cities. And here below in the bottom left, you can see they're wearing gas masks because God knows they're using chemical warfare and they're bombing, and and then the bottom right is ships and tanks and airplanes. It was such a fierce battle, as mentioned. Millions and millions of people lost their life and injured and suffered during this war. The North American, do you have was that Miss Marianne or Tesfaye? Did someone say something?
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Please, dear Tesfaye, go for it.
Yeah, in this paragraph that I see that is to be, it says the first century of the Baha'i era is in 1944. How is that to be 1944 is going to be the first Baha'i era? Because Baha'u'llah declared his mission in 1863, right?
You're absolutely right, but the Baha'i era starts from the declaration of the Bab, May 23rd, 1844. So it goes from 1844, so it goes all the way up to first century is to 1944.
Okay, that means before the declaration of Baha'u'llah.
That is correct, because the BE starts from the declaration of the Bab.
Okay.
Because this is why it is called twin manifestations. They fall under one faith in that sense. Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
The North American Baha'is, he emphasizes, this is the beloved guardian. North American Baha'is, the beloved guardian is emphasizing, must not be deflected from their focus and resolution by the crises and dangers that may affect their country and the world during this period. The beloved guardian here, Shoghi Effendi, specifically points out, dangers should not diminish their newborn faith. Strife and confusion must not darken their vision. Tribulations must not shake their will. Threats must not undermine their loyalty, and upheavals must not turn them away from their direction of action. And this is so interesting, dear friends, because we at this hour thinking about what is going on in our realities. We never know that in what is going to happen in a few years, even 5 years. Our country may enter into a war. You never know what is going to happen down the road. But all this prescription by the beloved guardian is ever apt, ever poignant, as the Baha'i community, which is, and especially the North American Baha'i community, as it's directly addressed, we should stay ever focused on what we have to do. Whether the world is encircling in problems, we got to stay focused. And here the beloved guardians say, stay focused. Dangers should not diminish your newborn faith, because our faith is still newborn. We're still, you might be 82 years or so from when this letter was written, but relatively speaking, we have not gone too much farther from when this was. Yeah, there may be, the faith is now in 200 some odd countries. There's national spiritual assemblies and all types of agencies and clusters all around the world. But in reality, it's still a relatively nascent faith. So the beloved guardian is saying, danger should not change your focus. Strife and confusion should not darken your vision. And all these troubles and tests and threats should not turn the community away from your direct action. So this is another address, and this is in one of the World Order letters. I'll read this for you guys. In the World Order of Baha'u'llah, it spells out the calamities that lie ahead and the forces causing them. Shoghi Effendi writes, the passionate and violent happenings that have in recent years strained to almost the point of complete breakdown the political and economic structure of society are too numerous and complex to attempt within the limitations of this general survey to arrive at an adequate estimate of their character. Nor have these tribulations, grievous as they have been, seem to have reached their climax. So here the beloved guardian says, even these tribulations have not even reached their climax and exerted the full force of their destructive power. The whole world, wherever and however we survey it, offers us the sad and pitiful spectacle of a vast and enfeebled and moribund organism. Moribund means dead. Moribund organism, which is being torn politically and strangulated economically by forces it has ceased to either control or comprehend. So even the economics is being strangled. And what is strangling it economically is this Great Depression. The Great Depression, the aftermath of the severest ordeals humanity had ever experienced. The disintegration of the Versailles systems. We talked about the Versailles Treaty. The disintegration of the Versailles system. The recrudescence of militarism. So it's now coming back. The emergence of it back. Because they thought the war to end all wars. They thought war was over. But now it's coming back. The recrudescence of militarism in its most menacing aspects. The failure of vast experiments and newborn institutions to safeguard the peace and tranquility of peoples, classes, and nations have bitterly disillusioned humanity and prostrated its spirits. Its hopes are, for the most part, shattered. Its vitality is ebbing, its life strangely disordered, its unity severely compromised. So here the beloved guardian in this paragraph in the World Order of Baha'u'llah is summarizing. He's like he's a magnificent sociologist, anthropologist even, and he's looking at it from that sociological viewpoint of surveying humanity and what is going on in the world scene. And he's looking at it from the eagle eye, watching what is going on, because as you all remember, the beloved guardian would read the newspapers and be very aware of what was going on in the world. So he had was very well up to date, and he's writing here about the spiritual collapse of humanity. He's writing about this sad spectacle, enfeebled, moribund organism. Humanity is that dead organism. The language of the beloved guardian is so brilliant. And then he talks about how it's being strangulated economically. And this is because of humanity's greed. materialism, greed, that it was a small cadre of individuals that pretty much controlled the markets and economies and caused the entire stock market to go into that Wall Street crash in 1929. And so what happened is it caused a world global economic collapse, causing and eventually steam barreling into World War II. And so this is really what happened, and it caused the recrudescence of militarism and all of those things. So here is, as they say, the beloved guardian, recrudescence of militarism. So you can see all pictures of war here, marching, a war, explosions, burnings. 2 years into the plan, remember the plan was 1937, so 2 years into the plan, September 1st, 1939. So this is now almost 9 months after Advent of Divine Justice. The Second World War broke out and continued until September 2nd, 1945, 1 year after the end of the 7-year plan. This war enmeshed more than 30 countries of the world, representing more than 100 million people grouped into 2 opposing alliances. 100 million people. The major players were the Axis players, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the allies were France, Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union, as well as China to a lesser extent. Although there are no accurate figures available, there are estimates of around 35 to 60 million people were killed, and it has been challenging to determine the number of people who were injured or permanently disabled, making it most the violent and largest war in human history. Eastern Europe had the highest human loss, with Poland losing 20% of its pre-war population. 20%. 1 in 5 people died. Yugoslavia and Soviet Union around 10%. So here's some newspaper. Hitler opens war, bombs Polish cities. This is when Hitler attacked Poland. Hitler's forces attacked Poland by land, sea, sky. And here it is. This is when it was that blitzkrieg that Hitler did on Poland. And this is in the San Francisco Chronicle. War. This is from Wilt Chamberlain. Not Wilt Chamberlain, not the basketball player. So he says, it's time for action. Center of Warsaw bombed as 3 Nazi armies invade Poland. So there were millions who became victims of famine, disease, epidemics in China and East Asia, in addition to those who died in battles as the result of bombardment. As we all know, food is a commodity that we have in peace. Medicine is a commodity that we have in peace. But when there is a war, access to food, water, medicine, and all of these things gets massively disrupted. So then millions of people, especially in a war of this size, did not have access to food, to medicine, to clean drinking water. And so disease was rampant, as well as starvation was a fact that many of them died. And as we all know, this is one of the gravest atrocities that humanity's ever had, was this Holocaust on the Jewish population, where around 5.7 million, close to 6 million Jews, and half of them from Poland, died in the Nazi concentration camps and death camps. This is something, dear friends, that I also encourage every one of you to also become knowledgeable on. not just to say, I know of it, but to be knowledgeable about the history of the war, World War II, as well as the history of the sufferings of the Jews. What happened? And there's a very good movie on Netflix that is called, I believe, The Final Solution. And it shows the reasonings of and how the Nazis themselves got together and came up with the idea and the systematic orchestration of the Holocaust. And it's pretty amazing, because I'm sure all of you have seen Schindler's List, but this is showing how did they come up with the idea, and then how did they orchestrate it into the system and make sure all the branches of Germany, every single hierarchy, agreed with it unanimously. It's very interesting of how they did it. And it's called The Final Solution. And it's not a documentary, it's a movie. So it was very well made. So as mentioned, many countries in the Far East, China, Burma, India, Philippines, they all suffered exploitation, abuse under Japanese occupation. And they were afflicted by famine and epidemics. This is another reality. Disease doesn't go away. Diseases are always there. But when humanity gets into conflicts, and frankly, I'm going to use the word stupidity, and not caring for each other's lives, diseases can get the stronghold. One of the reasons that we have a massive plague affecting humanity right now, namely Corona, COVID, whatever we call it, is because we have spent so much money on weaponry instead of medicine. The reality is, if we spent even 10% of the monies on our military budgets, and we shifted that into healthcare and caring for our populations, most diseases would have been wiped out. If you think about it. I mean, we wouldn't be hearing about every day thousands of people dying from this disease or that disease. We would have worked to eradicate them. I mean, we have some of the most brilliant people on this planet working on cures for things. An extra, $500 billion would be shifted towards that. I'm sure we'd be making a serious dent in those things.
Hassan, according to the writings, that I think the diseases are sent to us, to humanity. It's sent from the Lord.
I'm not even
Probably
sure.
It might be a punishment for humanity. We are far from Him, or we need to be, take care of ourselves, sanitations, and too much going on in this world.
Dear Tesfaye, these diseases are wake-ups. They're not sent from the Lord. They're wake-ups that we are not focused on what we need, that we're not bringing our actions in line with coming together. And let me explain what I'm saying on this. There are always diseases. And diseases such as viruses adapt and they mutate, as we're seeing. But as a humanity, if we came together as a species and are not fighting each other, wasting our resources and throwing our monies at each other for wars and conflicts and everything, and put our resources, as it mentioned in that section when we were talking about a high world commonwealth, bringing our resources together and going and taking on problems such as eradication of diseases, we wouldn't have these problems on such a scale. And if we had better handling of whether it was hygienic handling in the world or whether this was a biological weapon. We wouldn't even be having these type of weapons, you know, so that to harm each other as a species, these would be eliminated. So the reality is, dear Tesfaya, is whether it was sent from our Lord or not, it's a wake-up call that we have to come together as a species to...
Yeah, that's the test and the difficulties, you know, all the time we are facing in life, because life has never been smooth.
Right. And it makes me think of that extract from Baha'u'llah. It says, till the limbs of man quake, right? Till the limbs of man quake, you know, and when I think of that extract, I think we got to wake up, you know, and we have to reach that point where we reach a point where we are bestirred, we are shooken to our very inner core that there is no other hope for humanity other than coming together, working together, and not seeing each other and countries' individualism, holding this nationalistic pride of one country superiority over another, that we have to come together as one species, one planet, one humanity, one family. And this is because a virus doesn't think like that.
That's what we are lacking, because we don't know how to work together as a human being. Instead of fighting and hating each other, we need to come to the Baha'i faith and then be united.
You're very right. Very, very right, dear Tesfaya.
Yeah.
So during this period, the weaponry that was used was unique for this war. This was the atomic bomb that was used on Hiroshima. And this is what the city looked after. It was completely wiped out. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it. So I show you, this was the before. It was a vibrant, incredible city. Before, it was just flattened. There was nothing. And before Nagasaki, vibrant city. After the bombing of Nagasaki, just wiped, completely clean. This is the reason why World War II stopped. This was because for the first time, we reached another level of weaponry that the world saw and the United States had in its arsenal. So here, His Holiness Abdul Baha reveals, when the winds blow severely, rains fall fiercely, the lightning flashes, the thunder roars, the bold descends and storms of trials become severe. Grieve not, for after this storm verily, the divine spring will arrive. So do not grieve. Do not grieve because of this suffering, because the divine springtime will come. And here, dear friends, as mentioned, 1941, opening paragraph, promised day has come. This is in the Beloved Guardian. He's warning humanity of the impending calamities. A tempest unprecedented in its violence, unpredictable in its course, catastrophic in its immediate effects, unimaginably glorious in its ultimate consequences, is at present sweeping the face of the earth. Its driving power is remorselessly gaining in range and momentum. Its cleansing force, however, much undetected. So this cleansing force this is all talking about these two simultaneous forces. So its cleansing force, however much undetected, is increasing with every passing day. Humanity is gripped in the clutches of its devastating power, is smitten by the evidences of its resistless fury. It can neither perceive its origin, nor probe its significance, nor discern its outcome. Bewildered, agonized, helpless, it watches this great and mighty wind of God invading the remotest and fairest regions of the earth, rocking its foundations, deranging its equilibrium, sundering its nations, disrupting the homes of its peoples, wasting its cities, driving into exile its kings, pulling down its bulwarks, uprooting its institutions, dimming its light, and harrowing up the souls of its inhabitants. So what is this tempest unrestrained that God is invading the remotest and fairest regions of the earth and doing all of this, rocking its foundations? This is one of the twin processes, namely the process of disintegration, right? This is the driving power that is remorselessly gaining in range and momentum. It's a cleansing force, spiritually cleansing force. And this is a tempest unrestrained in its violence. This is the opening paragraph of Promised Days Come. So this is from the Beloved Guardian. He says, we should not, however, forget that an essential characteristic of this world is hardship and tribulation, and that it is by overcoming them that we achieve our moral and spiritual development. So it is essential to have hardship and tribulation. And if you recall in part 16, when we were talking about all of those tests, and I believe it was our dear Royajan was presenting on that part and going one thing after another, talking about tests. That was, tests are an essential characteristic of this world. And these tribulations are essential. And it's the aspect of overcoming these tests that we achieve our moral spiritual development. And here's another wonderful quote. Let me have Miss Claudia, if you could so kindly read this one for us.
Sure. Ours rather the duty, however confused the scene, however dismal the present outlook, however circumscribed the resources we dispose of, to labor serenely, confidently, and unremittingly to lend our share of assistance in whatever way circumstances may enable us to the operation of the forces which, as marshaled and directed by Baha'u'llah, are leading humanity out of the valley of misery and shame to the loftiest summits of power and glory. Shoghi Effendi.
Beautifully read, Miss Claudia. So here the Beloved Guardian says, however confused the scene. And God knows the scene at that point in time was mighty confusing. I mean, if you think about what was going on at the time, he says, however confused the scene, however dismal, hundreds of millions of people died, however dismal the present outlook, and however circumscribed the resources we dispose of. He's telling the Baha'is, labor serenely. Serene means peacefully, calmly, but confidently and unremittingly to lend our share of assistance. Means do not give up unremittingly. In whichever way circumstances may enable us to the operation of the forces which, and here's again the words and terminology of the Beloved Guardian in the sense of using terms that are militarism, marshaled and directed. Marshaled is a term in the military. So he's saying the forces of Baha'u'llah are marshaled. It's like they're an army of Baha'u'llah. marshaled and directed by Baha'u'llah, and are leading humanity out of this valley of misery and shame to the loftiest summits of power and glory. Beautiful, so beautiful. So this is an extract coming from Century of Light. This is the awesome document by our Supreme Body, and Research Department of the Universal House of Justice, serving the history of our faith. In Century of Light, the ruin that human race has brought upon itself during the 20th century as a result of the process of disintegration is portrayed. The loss of life alone has been beyond counting. This is from the Supreme Body. The disintegration of basic institutions of social order, the violation, indeed, the abandonment of standards of decency, the betrayal of the life of the mind through surrender to ideologies as squalid as they have been empty, the invention and deployment of monstrous weapons of mass annihilation, the bankrupting of entire nations, and the reduction of masses of human beings to hopeless poverty, the reckless destruction of the environment of the planet, such are only the more obvious in a catalog of horrors unknown to even the darkest of ages past. So these are just some, as the Supreme Body is now addressing in this Century of Light, as a result of this process of disintegration. And here's an extract I wanted to put on this slide also from His Holiness Abdul Baha. The gift of God to this enlightened age is the knowledge of the oneness of mankind and of the fundamental oneness of religion. War shall cease between nations, and by the will of God, the most great peace shall come. The world will be seen as a new world, and all men will live as brothers. Yeah, really makes, this is my prayer, as every Baha'is prayer, is that we see each other as brothers, as one family, and these wars, these will cease, that we will see each other as one family. So now we're going to get into these processes of disintegration and integration. And this could be a whole part in itself, but I synopsisized it because it's really in paragraph 103, but I wanted to just open it up just a little bit so we can understand it a little bit deeper. In paragraph 103, the beloved guardian describes these two parallel and synchronized processes of the unfoldment of the divine plan and the world-shaking crises as the design and the work of the divine will directing and controlling the fortunes of the faith and the destiny of humanity. So there's two processes at play: integration and disintegration. They're working in parallel and synchronized. Okay? Now, this is a quote that I found very pertinent, and it says, integration is a basic law of life. When we resist it, disintegration is the natural result, both inside and outside of us. Thus, we come to the concept of harmony through integration. When we resist integration, the result is disintegration. It makes you think, you know, if you resist the faith, what happens? Because the faith is integration. The resulting process is disintegration. So it's all the systems that are in the sense of resistance of the faith is disintegration. All the old world order is disintegration. But integration is the basic law of life. In this sense, basic law of spiritual life for the humanity. And thus we come to harmony through integration. That was an interesting extract from this individual, Norman Cousins. So in a number of messages, and this is, when I say a number of messages, quite a few messages, the Beloved Guardian describes the historical process unfolding in the 20th century in the context of these two processes of integration and disintegration. So this is one extract. This is coming in the Decisive Hour, page 23. This is in the 5th of July, 1938. So this is before Advent of Divine Justice. This was written to the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States in Canada. The Beloved Guardian writes, Shoge Effendi is reiterating the crises facing humanity in these remaining years. He says, pregnant indeed are the years looming ahead of us. The twin processes of internal disintegration and external chaos are being accelerated every day and are inexorably moving towards a climax. He describes it as pregnancy. Right? The rumblings that must precede the eruption of those forces that must cause the limbs of humanity to quake. This is in Kitab Akhdas. Limbs of humanity to quake can already be heard. The time of the end. This is from Gospel of St. John. The times of the end. The latter years, Revelation. The time of the end. The latter years, as foretold in the scriptures, are at long last upon us. The pen of Baha'u'llah, the voice of Abdul Baha, have time and again insistently and in terms unmistakable warned an unheeding humanity of impending disaster. The community of the Most Great Name, the leaven that must leaven the lump, the chosen remnant that must survive the rolling up of the old, discredited, tottering order and assist in the unfoldment of a new one in its stead, is standing ready, alert, clear-visioned, and resolute. So the Beloved Guardian in this extract he's pointing out to the twin processes of integration and disintegration, saying these processes. He's saying all the rumblings and finally moving towards this climax, this disintegration, this process of disintegration. And then he contrasts it to the process of integration. He's talking about the community of the Most Great Name is this process of integration. They are what? The leaven that must leaven the lump, the chosen remnant that must survive the rolling up of the old, discredited, tottering order. And this Baha'i community, this process of integration, must assist in the unfoldment of a new one in its stead. And how should we behave as Baha'is? We need to be ready. We need to be alert. We have to have clear vision. And how do we have clear vision? We got to be studying the messages of the Supreme Body for this day and age. This is the mandate that they're coming out, and follow it. And follow it. That gives us the clear vision. And be resolute. So these are the twin processes that are happening today. And as I mentioned, it was a myriad of letters. So here's another one. This is Advent. This is in World Order of Baha'u'llah. So let me get to my dear friend Riaz Jan. Riaz Jan, you're up. Go for it.
Nature of integration and disintegration processes. In another message, Shoghi Effendi identifies the evidences of disintegration, beset on every side by the cumulative evidences of disintegration, of turmoil, and of bankruptcy. Serious-minded men and women in almost every walk of life are beginning to doubt whether society, as it is now organized, can, through its unaided efforts, extricate itself from the slough into which it is steadily sinking. Every system, short of the unification of the human race, has been tried, repeatedly tried, and been found wanting. Wars again and again have been fought, and conferences without number have met and deliberated. Treaties, pacts, and covenants have been painstakingly negotiated, concluded, and revised. Systems of government have been patiently tested, have been continually recast and superseded. Economic plans of reconstruction have been carefully devised and meticulously executed. And yet, crisis has succeeded crisis, and the rapidity with which a perilously unstable world is declining has been correspondingly accelerated.
Beautifully read, Rios, John. So here again, excellent. Here again, the beloved guardian is now emphasizing that the world is steadily deteriorating, disintegrating. And if you recall the definition that our dear Karen mentioned in this vacillation, to vacillate. And you can see here, serious-minded men and women in almost every walk of life are beginning to doubt whether society as it is now organized can, through its unaided efforts, extricate itself from the slough into which it is steadily sinking. They have no hope. They have nowhere to turn. They have tried treaties, they have tried conferences, they've tried wars again and again. They've tried pacts and covenants, painstakingly negotiated. Systems of government have been patiently tested. What can they do? Where can they turn? Economic plans of reconstruction have been carefully devised, meticulously executed. And yet, crisis has succeeded crisis. And the rapidity with which a perilously unstable world is declining has been correspondingly accelerated. So it's humanity has been trying perilously to get out of this situation, this bankrupt order, but it's continuing. It's, I imagine building a house on quicksand. No matter what you do, no matter what you try, you put down, oh, I'm going to put cement so the foundation is strong, or I'm going to build up the walls, or I'm going to do this or that, or I'm going to, we'll come together and everyone try to build up the house. The foundation of the system is flawed. It is disintegrating, and this is what is happening. It is the process of the disintegration is at play. Turmoil, disintegration, bankruptcy. It is beset on every side by the cumulative evidences of disintegration, of turmoil, and bankruptcy. So this was an awesome quote that I made it into, per se, a funny visual, okay? So you can see it. Comparing the two processes of integration and disintegration, the beloved guardian exclaims, how striking, how edifying the contrast between the process of slow and steady consolidation that characterizes the growth of its infant strength and the devastating onrush of the forces of disintegration that are assailing the outworn institutions, both religious and secular, of present-day society. So in this extract, you could see slow and steady consolidation that characterized the growth of his infant faith, slow and steady consolidation, process of integration. But disintegration is what? It's the rabbit. It is fierce.
That's a beautiful presentation.
So the process of disintegration here, the process of disintegration is assailing the outworn institutions. It says here, devastating onrush. Devastating onrush. They're assailing the outworn institutions, both religious and secular. So that gives you an idea. They're moving at different speed, but they're simultaneous and twin processes, moving in the sense of in concert together. The beloved guardian identifies these two parallel processes. Let me check my time, we've got 5 minutes. So these two parallel processes of integration and disintegration, they're associated respectively with the rising fortunes of God's infant faith, as well as the sinking fortunes of the institutions of a declining civilization. So the beloved guardian also refers to the process of disintegration as one of the two things that will attract people to the faith. So as it gets really bad in the world, people have to look towards something. And as the Baha'i community is doing the integration and as the last hope for a tottering civilization, the world looks and the faith is there. So that's why the process of disintegration is one of the processes that will attract the faith. And this is from the beloved guardian, written on his behalf, dated July 3rd, 1948. This is what Shogh Effendi says. It says, there are two things which will contribute greatly to bringing more people into the cause more swiftly. One is the maturity of the Baha'is within their communities, functioning according to Baha'i laws and in the proper spirit of unity. And the other is the disintegration of society and the suffering it will bring in its wake. When the old forms are seen to be hopelessly useless, the people will stir from their materialism and spiritual lethargy and embrace the faith. That quote is so apt for today, that when they cannot see any hope in society, it says, when the old forms are seen hopelessly useless and they're stirred from materialism and spiritual lethargy, that's when they will come. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of our section. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we'll finish this next time, but let's do 2 more quotes. This is the last quote, and then I made a picture to match this quote because I found it really cool. So, okay, so this is this is in World Order Baha'u'llah Letters. The beloved guardian here, Shogh Effendi, expands further on how the leaders of religion and politics should turn their attention to the revelation of Baha'u'llah when they experience this bankruptcy of their ideas, as well as the disintegration of their systems in which they once believed. So as we mentioned, dear friends, these processes of disintegration are bankrupting the ideas, the systems of the leaders of religion, political theories, and all of these human institutions. So the beloved guardian is now expanding on, and he's now turning his focus, and he's saying leaders of religion, as well as exponents of politics and governors, this is what you need to do, okay? So this is in World Order Baha'u'llah. The beloved guardian says, leaders of religion, exponents of political theories, governors of human institutions, who at present are witnessing with perplexity and dismay the bankruptcy of their ideas and the disintegration of their handiwork, would do well to turn their gaze to the revelation of Baha'u'llah and to meditate upon the world order which, lying enshrined in his teachings, is slowly and imperceptibly rising amid the welter and chaos of present-day civilization. They need to have no doubt or anxiety regarding the nature, the origin, or validity of the institutions which the adherents of the faith are building up throughout the world. For these lie embedded in the teachings themselves, unadulterated and unobscured by unwarrantable inferences or unauthorized interpretations of his word. So here, the beloved guardian is now saying, he's directly addressing the leaders of religion, these political leaders and theorists and exponents of thought, as well as the governors and leaders of the world, of human institutions. He's turning towards them and saying that your ideas, your theories, your religions are bankrupt. Spiritually, materially, your ideas that you have espoused are bankrupt, and they have disintegrated. And he's saying, the beloved guardian is saying, that you would do well to turn your gaze, to turn your focus to the revelation of Baha'u'llah. Meditate upon this new world order that's lying enshrined in his teachings and is slowly gaining force, power, and ascendancy. And it's, as mentioned in, and visually presented, is that slow and steady process of integration. I found it humorous when I was doing this graphic, but that's really the reality. This Baha'i community is slow and steady consolidating. It's an infant strength. So this is what the beloved guardian is saying. Turn your gaze towards it. Meditate upon this world order. And the backdrop of this is what? The welter and chaos of this civilization. Welter, noise and chaos everywhere. And then the beloved guardian is talking again to the leaders, the exponents of political theories and governors of human institutions. And the beloved guardian is saying, do not have anxiety and doubt regarding the origins of validity of this faith. Do not have doubt. And in which the adherents of the faith are building up throughout the world. And then last line, it says, for these lie embedded in the teachings themselves. So turn towards the teachings themselves. It says, for these lie embedded in the teachings themselves, unadulterated and unobscured by unwarrantable inferences or unauthorized interpretations of his word. So he's telling the leaders of religion, leaders of political theories and governors, turn towards his word. And so this is my own personal graphic to that one quote that we just studied. So in this one graphic, it says leaders of religion, and there's, the leaders of the religions up here, exponents of political theories, and these are the exponents of the political theories, and governors of human institutions all around would do well to turn their gaze to the revelation of Baha'u'llah. And so that was my my fun one graphic to show that
that's a good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Very nice.
So that's what they need to do, because as mentioned about this process of disintegration, that they need to turn towards this revelation. So that's it, dear friends. We're at 8:30 or so, and we'll stop there for tonight. Any thoughts on our study of these paragraphs?
Will we be getting these slides?
Technically, my dear Riaz, you always get the slides, but tonight we didn't finish this part. There's still a few more slides left in this part. So once we finish the complete part, you'll next week you'll get the slides. Of course, you will always get the slides.
The full collection for that part.
Yes, of course.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Excellent. Always so happy to see every one of you in these evenings, and you really make my night. And let us have a closing prayer, and then you can go on, as they say, go on your merry ways and have a wonderful evening. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
O thou omnipotent Lord, we are all held within the mighty grasp of thy power. Thou art our supporter and our helper. Grant us thy tender mercy. Bestow upon us thy bounty. Open the portals of grace and cast upon us the glance of thy favors. Let the vivifying breeze waft over us and quicken our yearning hearts. Illumine our eyes and make the sanctuary of our hearts the envy of every blossoming bower. Rejoice every soul and gladden every spirit. Reveal thine ancient power and make manifest thy great might. Cause the birds of human souls to soar to new heights, and let thy confidants in this netherworld fathom the mysteries of thy kingdom. Set firm our steps and bestow upon us unwavering hearts. We are sinners, and thou the ever forgiving. We are thy servants, and thou the sovereign Lord. We are homeless wanderers, and thou art our haven and refuge. Graciously aid and assist us to diffuse thy sweet saviors and to exalt thy word. Elevate the station of the dispossessed and bestow thine inexhaustible treasure upon the destitute. Vouchsafe thy strength unto the weak and confer heavenly power upon the feeble. Thou art the provider, thou art the gracious, thou art the Lord who ruleth over all things. Abdu'l-Baha.
Thank you very much, Miss Donna, and thank you to my wonderful class. So wonderful to see every one of you, and wishing you a wonderful week, and look forward to finishing up paragraphs 103 through 107 next week. We'll definitely accomplish that next time, and I'll also send you your homework for next week, this coming week.
All right, Allah Akbar.
Allah Akbar, my dear Tesra. Have a wonderful week, you guys.
Bye.
Excuse me. Can I ask something?
Of course, please, Faridajan, please.
Thank you so much. That prayer that was just said, is it possible? I never heard it before. Is it possible to have a
copy of it?
Miss Donna.
It's in the Baha'i Reference Library. I could send it to you, Hassan, and you can pass it on.
I will
Thank
send
you
it to the
so
whole
much.
class. I'll send it to the whole class. Okay.
Thank you so much. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it
much.
very much.
Thank you.
It was a
Thank you,
very,
Miss Donna.
it was a
You're
very,
welcome.
it was a very good class.
Thank you very much, Faridajan. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye.
Night.
Bye.